And I've had the opportunity to work with Sacheen before. And so I'm really excited about sharing her with you all. So, hi, Sacheen.
Hi, Ray. How are you?
Oh, all is well in the city of my soul.
Mm-hmm.
Sweetie. Um,
Yes.
really excited about having you here because
Thank
of
you.
your contribution to women. And so, what I do know about you is that you've gone through a divorce,
Yes.
and based on your training, your background, your education, and your experience,
Yes.
you talk to women about that process, how to
Yes.
navigate that process.
For those of you who've never seen or met me or heard my name before, I'm Dr. Sacheen Mobley, and I write books about I've written books about divorce and narcissism, and I have a podcast called "So You're Getting Divorced." It's the podcast, and I talk about all issues pertaining to relationship formation, getting through it, dissolution, you name it. And so I so wish that young women would ask this question before they ask, should I get married? How do I prevent my marriage from deteriorating before
Right.
I say I do? Because what I find is it's not that divorce can't be prevented, it's that people's expectations of what marriage is going to be are more often the factors that are going to lead to their divorce. And
Mm,
most people are not getting real about what they believe marriage is going to be. And then all of a sudden they're
right.
in it and they're like, oh, well, this is not quite how I thought this was going to go.
Yeah,
And they don't
that's
talk
right. I didn't sign up for this, right?
right. Like, this isn't quite what I was anticipating.
Yeah, I didn't think
And
this. Right.
and they also don't discuss it with the person that they're marrying to say, I kind of have this idea about what marriage is going to be. Do you have the same idea? Because if you do, then this might work out a lot better than if you don't.
You know, that's real talk. That's real talk because many women don't know how to be in a relationship with a
No,
man,
no.
right? They just
Mm-hmm.
don't. They, again, like you said, they have this idea. And there was
Mm-hmm.
one young lady that I would talk to often, and beautiful, got her money, got her,
Mm-hmm.
all of those things or whatever. Men are completely attracted to her because she's a beautiful person inside
Mm-hmm.
and out.
Mm-hmm.
I had to tell him one day, like, attracting men is not a problem for you. It's
Right.
that's been the problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you need a relationship coach, and it can't be me because you won't
Right.
listen to me. Like, you
Right.
know what I'm saying?
Right.
You won't listen to me, but you do need
Mm-hmm.
a relationships coach because it's a skill, just like everything else. It's something
Yes.
you gotta learn, just like everything else. But
Yes.
let's talk about divorce. Like,
Let's talk about it.
we know most women don't seek out relationship help, or they seek help, but they
Mm-hmm.
don't seek the help to develop the skill. And I
Right.
think the missing part, like, it's just kind of
Mm-hmm.
like, sis, it's a skill set.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the only component because we're caring, we're giving, we're nurturing, we're committed, we're loyal,
Mm-hmm.
we're all the wonderful things. We're the package, right?
Right. Right.
Like that skill set. So
Yes.
then leads to divorce. And so,
So true. So true. I like to say that we will figure out if our hair is falling out, we will seek help. If we need to lose weight, we will seek help. If we have a health issue, we will seek help. If we want to change our wardrobe, we will seek help. If we want whatever it is that we want to do to better and improve our lives, we will get help to do that. And yet we will wait until our relationships are literally teetering on the brink before we will seek help. And I like to think of myself as a book that continually needs to be read and not just a page that I wrote on my wedding day.
right, right.
Right. And I think if we treat each other, I mean, I really do believe that if you want a successful relationship, then you got to keep reading the book. And just like I'm going to change over the course of 5, 10, or 15 years, so is the person that I'm in a relationship with. And if
Mhm.
I don't want to read that book for 5, 10, or 15 years, that's a problem. I can't stop on page one and go, but on page one, you said X, Y, and Z. Well, you haven't read the rest of the book. You haven't kept up your reading. So now
Mhm.
you're like, well, he changed. Did he? Well, he should have changed.
Yo, that tickled me. That really
Yeah.
tickled me. But you know what? To your point, when you were talking about how women will seek help for everything,
Yes.
what I found is what we would tend to do is seek our girlfriends instead of professional help.
Ding, ding, ding.
And sadly, our
Mm-hmm.
girlfriends are in the similar situation or worse.
Yes. Or worse.
You're getting information based on where you are from everyone
Yep.
around you, right?
Yep.
And
Mm-hmm.
the same situation and circumstances. But I digress.
I talk about this on my podcast all the time. You seek out the tribe that supports you, but that tribe might not be supporting you quite the way that you need to be supported, depending on what you're going through.
Exactly, exactly. So, going through, such an
Mm-hmm.
interesting phrase
Mm-hmm.
because you had to go through a divorce. So
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about that, right?
Okay.
Because some adversity that you had to
Mm-hmm.
overcome. That's something that attacks your mental and your emotional in ways that a lot of women can relate to. So let's talk about that. Tell me.
So so I will say to you that I've been married twice.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I was very, very young. So I have two levels of experience here. The first time I got married, I was extraordinarily young. I was barely 22. That lasted less than a year. The second time I got married, I was much older. I was in my 30s, and that lasted 3 years. And so I have two kind of perspectives on experience, having lived between the two um, relationships. Now, relationships happen between there, but I didn't get married. And so the first time I got married, I was 22. I could do no wrong. We were going to rule the world, right? There was literally nothing that was going to stand in our way. But that divorce it's an exercise in hot-headed 20s because I did everything myself. I literally filed all my own paperwork. I took care of all the nuts and bolts. And because it was so short, it's like that I don't know if you remember, but back in the late 90s, maybe early 2000s, Britney Spears got married for like 24 hours. That's what it felt like. You know what? It was like I was married and then I wasn't. I was married and then I wasn't. And so that experience, I mean, it was hysterical. And in hindsight, it was truly funny. But what I think happens, and I'm talking to your millennial 20-something crowd right now, what
Uh-huh.
happened during that period of time, and I'll get to the older ladies in a minute, was that I didn't know what a book was. I didn't understand the concept of reading a relationship. I just knew everybody else was getting married. All my friends seemed to be doing this thing. We all seemed to be going the same direction together. Group thought, all those lemmings went off the bridge. Um, and so the divorce, when it happened, was probably not as devastating
Okay.
because I wasn't necessarily, I mean, I loved him, that was fine, but I was not necessarily as married to the idea of marriage so much as I was married to the idea of being a couple.
Right.
And so it just felt very different. The energy was just very different. Fast forward to my 30s where I've lived something. I've got some life behind me. I'm ready to start a family. I get married the second time thinking this is going to last forever. This one hurt a lot worse because
Mm.
we have a child. I have a son. He's 8 now. And so when I got married, I wasn't pregnant when we got married. So we got married because we wanted to. There was no baby on the way. In your 30s or late 20s, early 30s, 40s, 50s, to stop and go, do I want to get married or do I feel like I need to get married? Because that will set the tone for your relationship. So anyway, we got married. We had our son. Things were okay for a while, but they were never great. And they deteriorated rapidly after the birth of my son. And so that was harder because I didn't want to be a single mother.
Right.
That was a big consideration. And I had to weigh that against wanting to raise a child who understood the value of relationships in a healthy way. And so when I had to weigh those two against each other, I chose raising a child who understood relationships in a healthy way versus being scared to be a single mom. But
Mm-hmm.
it was hard because there's a lot that goes into it when you have life behind you, when you have lived and built something and you now join that with another person, mind, body, and soul, business, finances. Like there's so many pieces to this puzzle so many webs here that you've strung together that you have to unravel. And that really becomes the scary part, is the
Right.
unraveling piece. Like, okay,
Unraveling, right.
yes, like how do I unravel all of
Got
these
it all
threads?
together, right?
Yes, you have a plan for your life. You think, oh, we're going to buy the house in 5 years. We're going to do this, and this year we're going to have this and this year, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I got all these pieces now, and this puzzle. I thought we were putting this jigsaw puzzle we were putting together. I now have to figure out how to separate and make a whole separate picture that looks nothing like the box. Nothing like the box anymore.
I'm laughing so hard because in my mind, you know how silly I am, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, sir, this is not the plan.
This is not the plan, right? This was not the plan. That's right. That's how I felt too. I was like, this is not the plan.
Sir,
this is not on my list. This is not on my checklist of things to happen at this point in my life. Nope, this was not it. So I feel really like compelled to tell women of a certain age in a certain bracket of life that it's hard to think about unraveling the pieces of your life. Now, I will say that I was a little more fortunate in that we weren't married 10 or 15 years. And so our unraveling was painful, but not as painful as it could have been. I had a degree of autonomy going into marriage.
Okay.
I had a degree of independence going into marriage. And so I understood that it would be hard to be single again, but I'd already lived a life as a single woman. I know how to do this.
Right.
And I think a lot of women who get married early sometimes feel like, I can't do this because I've never had to figure out what it means to live the life of a woman on her own, actually in the world by herself without someone taking care of her.
Right.
So we went through a lot trying to get divorced, lots of money, and probably not as much time because I'm very focused and determined, very driven. When I'm ready to do something, I can
right.
and do it. But with children, it's complicated.
Oh, sure, for sure.
Yeah, it's complicated, and that's something that women have to understand. It's going to be complicated.
Let's dig a little deeper into that.
Yeah, go.
What was that like for you mentally and emotionally? Because you said it hurt, but it was just like, that would be the adversity. It was just like, how did you handle that? How did you overcome the mental and the emotional devastation?
So I will have to say I'm probably a little different than most women in the answer to that question, because what I do understand is I was grieving the loss of the relationship before we got divorced. And I think a lot of women probably don't recognize that's what's happening, but the sadness, the weeks of sadness, the weeks of anger, the displaced anger, you're mad about random I can't curse, random stuff. Like you don't know that that's what you're doing. You don't realize that you're grieving the loss of the affection, the attention, the connection. But the loss of that connection starts long before you cognitively think it's time to end the relationship.
Right.
Long before. You feel it in your body. You start to understand at a subconscious level, this is ending, but your mind just hasn't caught up yet. But your body starts
caught up. Yes, your head and your heart. They're not in the same place. Yes,
that's right. That's exactly what happened. And so, I was sad. It was hard. It was difficult to get out of bed some days because something has to give, but you don't know what. And so every day becomes an exercise in trying to understand, can you salvage it? Can you save it? Can you go to counseling? Can you fix it? And it becomes all consuming until it's not. Until it's not. It's all consuming you until it doesn't consume you anymore. And I can pinpoint some key times, like when we would go to therapy. We went to therapy twice, and I can show you where that point was for me of going, I'm no longer invested. Like the body and the mind finally caught up. Gotcha. It was the second therapist, and the second therapist we went to asked me, what is it that you hope to get out of therapy? And my ex-husband said, well, I assume we're going to fix what's wrong. And I said, we're either going to save our marriage or we're done. Which are two very different perspectives on how to approach therapy. Because I was like, we've tried fixing. We're either going to find a way to save what's here and make it different, or we're done. My brain had caught up with what my body was sending out for weeks and probably months, which is, I can no longer live in this limbo. I can no longer exist in that twilight phase of a relationship where we're just kind of holding and treading water and hope that one of us doesn't drown. Like, I'm not there anymore.
Right.
It's time to get out of the water. It's either time to learn how to swim or get out of the water.
Or get out of the water.
Or get out of the water. And so when I articulated that, she even said, you two have two very different ideas about what this is going to look like then. Because he's like, well, we have to fix what's wrong. And I'm like, but we've been working on fixing what's wrong for 6 months now. We either need to fix what's wrong instead of trying to keep fixing what's wrong, or we need to get out of the water. Because and this is a trap that women fall into, and I'm going to speak to women right now. And when a relationship is in adversity, we just need to keep trying. No, you need to fix it. You can try for 20 years, but if you have fixed nothing, then you have 20 years of adversity and 20 years of hardship, because trying is a really good cop-out for just keeping the status quo.
Exactly.
And I was not there anymore. I was like, I've been trying for months now. I got a baby to raise because my son was young. We were in therapy. My son wasn't even 6 months old yet. Okay. Or barely 6 months old. Like this all happened during his first year of life. So it was tough. I was a nursing mother. I was a full-time parent. I mean, it was hard. It was a hard couple of years. When we got to therapy, I stuck my nose above water and said, I will breathe on my own, or you will help me breathe, but I'm gonna breathe because I am tired of drowning. I am now tired of drowning. And so it was a pivotal moment, and it set the stage for what was to come. Because at that moment, this is why I say you don't know that you've been grieving all along until you suddenly stop grieving. It was at that moment when I really realized I was no longer grieving the loss of the relationship. I was now ready to start the next chapter.
Word.
And that was either going to be, we fix the problems that have plagued us in our relationship since even before marriage, let's be real, that have plagued us, or we go our separate ways and figure out how to parent separately the thing that holds us together.
Right.
So diving into that pool of understanding grief really helped me as time really helped me understand how much I had already grieved so much. Because you feel it. You feel the loss of that connection.
For sure. You know what? You brought me to the circle because I was going to revisit that word connection. I put together the Superwoman's Guide to Starting, Building, and Maintaining Relationships. And one of the tenets in there is connection.
Yes.
Connection, right?
Yes.
And it's a shameless plug, but
plug away. Plug away.
Right into this moment, because I even talk about like how to connect, right?
Yes.
Because these are not questions that we ask.
No.
Because we're not thinking about developing the skill. Like we're just like, oh, I'm in a relationship. Hopefully this will work, or we'll see what God's gonna do. And it's just like, no, this is your life. This is your marriage. This is your relationship. You decide.
Right.
God gave it to you, right? And I use this analogy, like if you're sitting somewhere and you got your coat on the back of a chair, right? And somebody walks by and they pick up your coat. You're like, hello? Like, that's my coat, right?
Right.
You don't start off aggressive. You just start off like, hey, awareness. Like, wait a minute, that's my coat. Assess the situation. You can see like where, what's this person, what they try to do here. Like, if this person is just like, and just grabs your coat and starts walking, you got a decision to make. Why? Yes. Because that's your coat.
Exactly.
It's your coat. It's your coat.
Right.
You don't be like, well, maybe God didn't want me to have a coat. What you mean?
Right.
That's your damn coat. Like, come on, girl.
Exactly.
Like, come on, sis. Like, that's your marriage. That's your man. Like, this is your gift from God.
Right.
Anyway, girl, jumped on my soapbox.
That, hey, jump away, because you are right. You are absolutely right. And this is where I go back to the analogy of reading the book. We assume that connection is set on the minute I say I do at the altar. And we're like, okay, I'm done. It's like the coat. Okay, I got the coat. Good to go. Like, I don't got to do nothing else now to protect this connection, because I said I do. So, I love you. So what else is there? Like, what else is there? And that's the thing. That connection ebbs and flows with time. It goes up and down with a job loss, a job gain, kids coming, kids going, moving across the country, moving back home because y'all done lost everything, going up, getting sick, not, everything. That connection it's a living thing. And yet we treat it like it's a dead thing that we acquired.
I love you. I'm here, right?
See, there you go, Ray. That's the key. I'm here, right? That phrase alone causes more problems for people. You're here. Well, that's fantastic. So is the dog. So are the kids.
So are the bills.
So is the mortgage. Great couples, I find, at least from the outside looking in, seem to understand that connection is the most important thing that they can work on in the relationship. Because when you lose the connection, if you lose that piece of it, then you're living separate lives. You can call yourself married if you want to. We know your roommates.
Exactly. It's funny that you said it's the most important thing, because that's number one. That's the very first thing that I touch in the guide, is this kind of like that connection, right?
Yes.
And so because of Superwoman syndrome,
yes,
a lot of independence and those kind of things are imposed on the relationship, right?
Yes, very much so.
I love talking about that, because it's such a difference between being a superwoman and Superwoman syndrome. And it's funny because I've been having this same conversation almost every Superwoman that I've spoken with, for Wednesday, dealing with the Superwoman syndrome, because that's where a lot of us have been, and it's still where a lot are, right? The Superwoman syndrome, that's an egoic thing. Like, that comes from egoic space. Ego, there's no ego in us. Like, there's no ego in us. What you call it? Tyler Perry said, it ain't no I in us. Like, it ain't us either, right?
Right.
You can't have that ego, in your relationship, because it really is about two people becoming one.
Right.
It is possible. It's so possible if we take the time to learn, right?
Right.
The relationship stuff is not all about the woman doing everything right. It's not
all
everything to please a man, get a man, whatever. But it's just like those things have a space, but because of the lack of understanding, when you talk to women about that, because that is required and it is needful in your relationship, they resist it, because they see it as being weak, and it's just like, oh, not at all. It's just like, but anyway, I'm talking. I'm supposed to be like,
no, we are having a conversation about something that's very, very important. Very important.
It's so important to reach these women, because there's so many women out here who really, they really want their relationship to work, or they really want to be in a fulfilling and a rewarding relationship. But because of her mindset, because of her experiences, because of her lack of skill, those kind of things, even when and or if, she's blessed with those things, she's given the gift of a good man. We ain't talking about loser dudes. We ain't talking about.
We're not talking about those.
Yeah, we ain't talking. We talk about a good dude.
Right.
We sabotage it.
Right.
We sabotage it. Right.
That's right.
And it's just kind of like we do it, and we want to blame them, and not to say the dude didn't do anything wrong, say anything.
Of course not.
Whatever. But it's just kind of like, sis, you gotta take ownership for what you did, what you failed to do, what you didn't. What you knew to do that you didn't do, all kinds of stuff. Like, it doesn't just fall apart. Like, you know what I'm saying?
No, It doesn't. That's right. That's right. So let me build on that for a moment, because
Okay.
one of the things that I talk about on my podcast a lot is, okay, you can grieve for 5 minutes or you can grieve for 50 years. Number one, in that grief, what you're going to have to acknowledge, unless you want to repeat this pattern in your next relationship, what you need to figure out is, what part of this do I own? What part of this is mine to deal with? Like,
Right.
it's not all yours. Obviously, like you're saying, it's not all you. It was never all you, but it's partly you. Let's be real. And this is the adult conversation that many women who are grieving can't have yet. And then they try to have it, as you said, with their girlfriends who are like, of course it's all him. Our friends will say he was terrible. Everything was his fault. You didn't do anything. You did nothing. And someone who is trying to help you not make the same mistake again will say, well, he might have been terrible. But the separate issue here is, at what point did you decide to start settling for, well, I'm here, but so, because that has to be the piece that gets worked on, unless you just want to have the same relationship that you had before.
Exactly.
Right. Again, and I talk about this on my channels as well. Like, when you go to the next one, because of course you're going to want to go to another relationship that's healthy. But if you don't fix this issue, not fix him, fix you, fix you, then what you're going to end up with is exactly what you have right now. It's just going to look different. He might have a little more money. He might look a little better, might be a little younger, but he's going to be the exact same man.
That's what I tell them, sis. That's what I'm, doctor. Yeah, I mean, let me give you
like both.
Doctor. I'll be like, girl, you just gonna have him again in a different body. Yep. Until you body. People who interact with me know that I'm coming from a space of love. Like, I don't have any judgment or any condemnation for you. No. I'm the person that's going to tell you what you need to know, not what you want to hear. Right?
Exactly.
Because I want to see you out of this pain. Mm-hmm. Like, so I'm not going to comfort and coddle you in the pain. I'm going to comfort and coddle you out of it. It's like, girl, come on, yeah, that's right. Keep it, like, because you can't sit here. You can't stay here, right?
Right.
But, and like you said, until we take ownership for our part, and we start recognizing, like, yo, it's me. Like, you know what I mean? Doctor, when you look at the common denominator, what is it? It's you. You are the common denominator in every one of those relationships. Every where you got lied to, abused, mishandled, cheated on, worked on. Look,
well, this might actually be something that you need to work. Oh no, how can you say that? Look what he did. Look at the things that I did for it. It's like, hang on.
I did this. I did this. I tried everything. I was just like, well, that's a part of the problem.
Like, that's part of the problem. That's
like, you did what you knew to do, not what you were supposed to do.
Right. Because you stopped reading his book. You stopped reading the book.
It comes back to the book.
It always comes back to that.
You got a book.
I do. I do. I have 2 of them, actually. Thank you for that segue. I appreciate that.
It's perfect plug. Perfect plug.
So I have a book called So You're Getting Divorced. It's a very practical little guide about divorcing and the things that you might want to keep in mind. But there's also some things in there like that I bust some myths about that are really important. It's what my podcast is based on. And it's called So You're Getting Divorced. And then I wrote a second book, which I find is quite relevant as well. And it's called Who Did You Love? The 4 Faces of Narcissism. And it's about the fact that some people, and this is whether it's romantic or not, but some relationships are more painful than others, and certain types of people are harder to get through because of their narcissism, because they set out to find and hurt you. And that's a special kind of pain that can sometimes take a little more than just talk therapy to get through. And so this is a very short kind of exploratory guide that I wrote to help women recognize that some of the behaviors that they put up with, that they think are just love, are not just love.
Right.
They're not. And they're actually designed specifically to break them down. So it's a hope that women will read that and begin to recognize some patterns in their relating to family members, to those good friends, to those romantic relationships that will help them to break the cycle. I'm going to take your words. Sometimes it's not that you're not a superwoman, but sometimes there is a supervillain who is determined to bring you down.
Right. And I think that that's the importance of God in your relationships, right? Because not to get all spiritual, but I am spiritual.
Yes,
the word says that what God puts together, that no man can under, right? And I feel that a lot of situations, God didn't put them together in the first place.
Right.
And so even though God hates divorce, he also allows it because he's not into bondage. Like, you know what I'm saying? He's not going to, like, if he came to set the captives free, how he going to hold you hostage and make you bound? You follow?
I do.
Kind of like the importance of seeking God and knowing God in your situation and him being a part of the relationship, and especially if it is from God. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because, well, you know, developing your skill set, you know, and allowing God to guide and lead you, because why let God guide and lead you? It ain't even about being super spiritual and deep. It's real simple, practical, because God created that man. You know what I'm saying? God that man in places and in ways that you do not. And if you are communicating with God about your man, about your dude, then God will talk to you about what he needs. And that's what it's all together for anyway, to supply needs, to meet a need. That man needed whatever he had, you needed. God put it all together. Boom, y'all become one. And yes, it will be, it will be stuff that you persevere through,
ebb and flow.
But like I did a post today that said, like, your relationship doesn't have to be perfect to be wonderful. Right. And I think that's the other thing, the delusion of perfection.
Yes.
Like, sis, you ain't even perfect. You're imperfect. He's imperfect. How you had a perfect relationship? Like, you know what I'm saying? And how can you expect to have something perfect? You know what I'm saying? Just appreciate that it's perfect for you. He's not perfect, but he's perfect for you.
Right.
You know
I do.
Have that delusion too, for sure.
Yes. And so what's really important is that before you say I do, you need to know what you want. And you need to understand that. You need to really embrace. And this is the thing, right? If you embrace what you want, then you'll get what you want. If you're wishy-washy about what you want, and like, well, I really want this, but I'll settle for it, then you'll get what you'll settle for every time.
You get what you settle for. You get what you settle for every time.
Get what you settle for.
You just dropped the mic. I don't even think we can say nothing else. Like, you gotta go in knowing what you want, because he will. Listen, what women don't fully understand, they don't understand their power. They don't understand a man who loves you only wants to make you happy.
Yes,
to make you happy. He will make whatever changes he needs to make, whatever he needs to make, because he wants you to be happy. But when you, I know we were supposed to be dropping the mic, but you
that's okay.
Like, it's just like, we so busy using our energy and our efforts trying to manipulate and control the situation so that it feels a certain way and it looks a certain way and all of those things. And it's just kind of like, that's not love.
No.
And you know what? This is my mic drop moment. Listen, I love hard, okay? And relationship, regardless of whether it's with a man, with my child, with my sibling, family, whoever, I love hard. One of the hardest lessons that I had to learn was it's not enough.
Right.
The other lesson that I learned that it was even harder than that was realizing I didn't know how to love. I'm loving hard as shit and don't know how to. Okay. Like, it was, and that's real. When you can get real with yourself and acknowledge and admit those kind of things about you, that's ready.
That's when you're ready. That's right. That's when you're ready.
Right. You know what I'm saying?
Is when you're ready.
We can go on and on and on. piggybacking off of each other because we've
Mhm.
learned some stuff, right? What makes you a superwoman?
Wow, that's a good question. My belief, my belief. I mean, I don't do it all things perfectly, but I believe that I can. I don't achieve everything that I set out to do, but I believe that I will. I don't
Yeah.
have the perfect life, but I believe that I deserve it.
Yeah.
So,
What would you say to a superwoman to
mhm.
encourage and inspire her to persevere, to keep showing up and press past the pain?
It is only today. You have only today. And
Yeah.
if you got up this morning and the only thing you say is thank you, then that means that you can keep going. So
Wow.
every time you wake up in the morning, the first thing you say is thank you. And that means you have gotten another gift of 24 more hours. So keep going.
Wow. That was really powerful. And where can we find this book? Where can we find it? Where can we find you on social media?
Oh, I am all over the place.
We
So
need you on these social media streets. Where you
I
at?
am on. I have YouTube channel, so it's Dr. Sacheen everywhere. So no problem. You can always find me. DrSacheen, all one word. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. My books are on Amazon. I have an author page, Dr. Sacheen Mobley. I literally have made it as easy as pie. You can find So You're Getting Divorced, the podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor, Apple and Google playlists, and many other places that I can't even think to name. There's like 15 platforms. And I am always out in these social media streets. You know, you see me posting all over the place.
All over the
So
place.
both books are available on Amazon. And like I said, I have an author page. One is So You're Getting Divorced. The other is Who Did You Love? Four Faces of Narcissism. And again, Dr. Sacheen Mobley. You cannot miss me. I'm the only one out there with that name.
Listen, dopeness is unique, okay?
It really is. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I love it. I love it. And listen,
Thank you. Thank
I
you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
yes, this was so much fun. I
It
appreciate you taking
was.
time out to come and share with my growing Superwoman community. And so, listen, y'all, definitely you want to do that. Listen, go visit her, connect with her, follow her on all of her social media. She's putting out great content. And she's just an all around good person. But y'all probably know that already because I'm not going to have nobody here that's not good people. So, listen, Superwoman, come back next Wednesday. We're going to have a Superwoman from somewhere around the world come and share her story, her story of strength that will keep you inspired, that will keep encouraging you to get beyond the baggage and the bullshit. Okay. So, Superwoman, we will see you next Wednesday. Bye.
Bye.